I want to start. There's been a slight change to the addendum that you all have in front of you. Since this is the Rhode Island Candidate School, the symposium on how to pick the right criminal defense attorney has now been moved to 2 o'clock. It's going to be held at the Sorrell Conference Room upstairs. For those of you going with Governor DePetro and John Salona on the tour of the ACI, the buses will be leaving right out here at 12:30. And then later in the day, the symposium, The Brown Bag, Friend or Foe, that will be held now at 4 o'clock. This is an exciting day, as you've heard from both Bruce and Larry. I mean, just think about it. The future Bruce Sunland of Rhode Island could be sitting right in this very room. Look around. The people around you. One day they could be elected. The next day they could be the subject of a Hummel report or an I-Team report. Or on the courthouse steps with the raincoat over their head coming down. Now, as you know, politics in Rhode Island is very exciting. It's very entertaining. You see people rise to the top, like a Patrick Kennedy, and then, for different reasons, they decide not to run, whether it be very negative polling numbers, 74% negative amongst independents for other reasons. Although there is good news on Patrick Kennedy front. I don't know if anybody saw the late news last night on Channel 10. Now, he's already getting ready that he's going to be leaving office. As you know, he's not seeking re-election. And there's good news and bad news. Now, the good news is Congressman Kennedy has decided once he's out of office, he's going to have a full-time driver, which is a good thing. Now, the bad news is he has hired Vinnie Paz to be that driver. So what we need in this state are Rhode Island political leaders profiled on C-SPAN, not America's Most Wanted. But there seriously has never been a better time to run. If you've ever thought about running, this is the time. Whether it be the national polls that you see, 80% of the people feel Washington's moving in the wrong direction. 75% or higher of Rhode Islanders feel that the state is headed in the wrong direction. If there was ever a climate for change, and that should be on every campaign sign, this is really the time. You know, people in office don't like it, but the whole feeling of vote the bums out, when you're talking about a state that has the third highest unemployment and some of the ineffectiveness that we've seen from our political leaders, this truly is an ideal time for you to jump in. But I encourage you to run. I would love to run for office. For some reason, the Board of Elections feels would be some unfair advantage for me to run, being on every single morning on WPRO, #1 in the morning, and also hundreds of thousands of people listening. But you're about to find out who your real friends are. You know, there's two ways you can really find out who your friends are. #1 is call some people in August and say you need some help moving on a Saturday afternoon in August. See who shows up. Those are your real friends, the people that show up. And the other is to run for office. I see this all the time of people that come through. They have all their friends, all these volunteers ready to jump out with them. In the end, you're going to find that it's going to come down to you, maybe your spouse, maybe one or two people. But all those people that say, we'll be there and so forth, my experience has seen it does not pan out. It has to begin and end with the candidate. There's some other things. There's a couple of people in this room that will actually appear with me on the WPRO Morning News. Most of you should not. Many people have this false image that they'll be peeking out their window and TMZ's on the front lawn, or there are photographers following them everywhere. It's not exactly like that. I don't know if people are interested in the media. You're going to be hounded about that parking ticket that you didn't pay 10 years ago, or that your brother had problems with his taxes, or that your wife went to a marriage counselor, or whatever it is. Those should not be things that prevent you from running for office. You're a new candidate. You want press. You want free press. There's a very good way to do it. Steal the other person's lawn signs. Now, that is one way to get attention. That is not really the type of press you want, and that's not the way to get free attention. But I have found, and I meet everybody. I interview people running for Senate. I interview people running for governor, different races that we look at. It has been my experience that the person who wants it the most wins. That's who ends up winning. There are people that get into it for different reasons. Either they're convinced to do it, they think they want to do it, different reasons. the person who hits the street and wants it the most of the time, they're the person that comes out on top. You're going to hear a lot of different things today, and people give you advice. I'm not going to give you advice. I'm just going to tell you some of the things that I see exhibited in different people that I've met, and I can just tell that they're a player, that they're going to go someplace, they're going to win their race. Whatever the race is that they're in, they're going to win it. Number one, of course, is working hard, being focused, and make sure you're qualified. If you're not into that particular office, you know, maybe it's not your strength. Maybe there's another office. Timing is everything. When I was in Boston, I met this guy at a function, and we were talking afterwards, and I told my wife, I met this guy today. He's not in a powerful position, but he's a player. He's got a lot of the right qualities. I think at the right time, he could really go places. He could go for high office. He had good inner confidence. He could handle himself well. Now, that person, this was years ago, but that person was Scott Brown, who was just elected to the U.S. Senate. And Scott was great and came on with me just, 2-3 days before the election and told that story. But that's someone I could tell right away. He had the right type of qualities. You want to run. Pick 3 reasons. You don't need to know all the different ins and outs. You're going to bore people. Don't bore people. Be exciting on the campaign trail. Keep it simple. You know, when I was growing up in Edgewood and people would come around and ask my dad, you know, I want your vote, he'd ask 3 questions. Who are you running against? Are you a Democrat or Republican? And why should I vote for you? If they could answer 2 of the questions, they had a good chance of getting his vote. And you'd be surprised the people that would say, I'm a good guy. Or they'd look to the person with them and say, who are we running against? You don't need a litany of reasons. You don't need to know the health care bill in and out. You don't need to know particularly what's going on in Washington. You just need to know how you can make a difference in your backyard. You know, there's a great line also in Godfather 2. I don't know if there's any movie Godfather fans here, but Michael Corleone turns to his group and says that famous line, if history has taught us anything, you can kill anybody. And I love that in a political sense. And in a political sense, what does it mean? It really means anybody is beatable. In the right climate, look at Chris Dodd. In the right climate, anyone can be beaten. Never forget, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the next president until Barack Obama came around. Anyone under the right circumstances, the right campaign, can be beaten. No one is untouched.